Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood, and joining me, as always, is Josh Mansfield. And we got ourselves a treat this weekend with the Idlewild Open. You know, I saw some people online saying it's the most compelling course on tour this season. And it's hard to argue, like, the final round, Josh, in MPO was electric disc golf. I mean, there's just no way around. Like, the shot making, the putting, the clutch moments, the crazy leaderboard action with people rising and falling. That is disc golf at its absolute best on a course that really brings out the best in players, because you have this mix of, you know, you got to bomb it out there like on 17, but you also have holes where one bad tree kick sends you into the netherworld. So it was just awesome to watch. And I feel like players really, like, and including players who we haven't necessarily seen have the biggest spotlight, showed up in a big way and just made for some awesome entertainment.
You know, one of the big things, if you watch the Jomez final round, Andrew Marwede gets to do an interview in a little special segment, and he talks about how he's, you know, been a college basketball player. Jomez, not as much as it used to be, but Jomez is still a little bit of a kingmaker. You get on feature card Jomez, and he talked about it. He's like, I missed Ledgestone because it got canceled, and I made it all the way up to the feature card, and I was really excited for that. And I think Andrew Marwede, I mean, he made a big statement, and you picked him for your top 5. You know, you made a big statement at Ledgestone. He plays well at these courses, but to get on to Jomez and then to get on to a playoff on Jomez and get that interview, the feature, like, I think Andrew Marwede is a name that he very openly admits that this isn't his, like, Idlewild is his specialty. But I think it's going to get to the point that we start looking at Andrew Marwede as a regular regional pick. And so, you know, between the win of Kyle Klein and the Andrew Marwede story, I think we were really given a treat in kind of how MPO can shape up for the future.
Just, you know, quick recap here. You know, Paul McBeth comes into the final round with a lead, and it really just never found the rhythm. And it was crazy up and down. Like, if you haven't watched final round, and Jomez doesn't totally do it justice, because, you know, you had Drew Gibson shooting lights out from, you know, further down. You had Calvin Heimberg shooting lights out, Joel Freeman shooting lights out. None of those guys on the lead card. This is why live is so exciting. But the Jomez final round still just a great card of disc golf to watch. Ultimately, when it gets all the way down to the end and all the dust settles, Kyle Klein hitting some huge putts down the stretch, tied with Andrew Marwede. They go to a playoff, just the two of them, and they both birdie the first one. Kyle Klein's drive on the first hole of the playoff is just insane. I mean, like, he could have tried to run it and just win the tournament right there, but, you know, it's kind of a high risk situation, especially with Marwede facing a tricky putt. But just that shot alone, you're like, wow, this kid is so special. And ends up winning it on the second hole of the playoff after Marwede's drive is off target. So Kyle Klein gets his first Elite Series win. Some emotion from him. No surprise, you know, in the post-round interview, just feeling those the bubbles of emotion that have to come up for somebody even young like him, who's only been on tour a couple of years. I mean, really like a year and a half, it feels like. You know, it's like post-COVID, Kyle Klein kind of joins the tour in June during the pandemic and makes this big name for himself. And, you know, he's been on the precipice, as we've talked about on the show in the last couple of weeks. But this is his first big Elite Series win. And, you know, I just think he said it himself, like, I feel like I can win on any course on tour. No question. I don't think there's a question about it. Like, he has all the tools and the mental game to match.
I think what's crazy is if you look at the scores, you know, Kyle Klein, Andrew Marwede, 25 under, and then you had four guys knocking at 24 under par behind them. And the way that Kyle Klein and Andrew Marwede were able to get to their playoff was by both of them birdieing 18. Like, a hole that is notoriously hard for birdieing. Our Andrew Marwede said it was the first time in his life that he'd birdied that hole. I mean, it's not as hard as some holes. It's possible. It's doable, but incredibly difficult. And so, I mean, to come up with that clutch, and Andrew Marwede throwing his only bogey on the weekend on hole 17 of the final round. You feel for him. You feel, you know, if he continues that clean stretch, who knows what happens. So, oof, it hurts, but what a finish. What a finish.
Sick. I mean, it's super sick. Like, and both likable guys. I mean, you know, I don't think they have the same kind of presence that we're used to from some of the other big names. You know, a little bit harder to kind of know what they're like, full personalities, not as active necessarily with all the YouTube stuff and everything like some pros out there. But, you know, just in the snippets of interviews that we have seen, I think they're both clearly like easy to root for. And I agree with what you said just a moment ago, which is that, you know, we're seeing a glimpse of the future. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's, when you look at my picks from this weekend, I only got one pick right in MPO, but I'm really pleased that the pick that I got right was Andrew Marwede being in the top 5. But look at the names that I picked that didn't make it in the top 5. Eagle, Ricky, Dickerson, Macbeth. And that's not to say that, like, oh, you know, people hilariously overreact to every single tournament. Like, Paul Macbeth has one bad round, and people are like, is it over for Paul Macbeth? Not at all, but like the fact that none of those guys finish in the top 5, it shows you how much more competitive it's getting. I mean, it's just winning back-to-back events is a bigger achievement than I think we even give it credit for at this point. Like when Ricky goes back-to-back at, you know,
Ledgestone,
Preserve Ledgestone.
Preserve Ledgestone.
Obviously the tie with Heimberg after the canceled final round at Ledgestone. I think we have to recognize how special that is because it's become so hard to dominate week in, week out.
You know, and I think that as we continue to have more and more players who just become, you know, excel more, I think it's going to become very likely that you get more players like Andrew Marwede who are just so amazing at what they do that you have stretches of the tour where you have, you know, your top 3 guys. We'll say your Macbeth, Wysocki, and Heimberg or Eagle, right? So top 4 guys. You have your top 4 guys who are always challenging for the win, but it's never a guarantee because you also have 4 guys who play the Midwest stretch perfectly or who play, you know, the West Coast early season just amazing. And like Anthony Barella, right? And then now you've got Andrew Marwede to talk about. And Andrew Fish is someone we talk about when you get to the East Coast. Having players like that, I think that even as the game develops, you're going to get more and more players like that, which is going to make it harder to pick week in and week out who's going to win any tournament.
Yeah, and when you think about it, like early in the season on the big open golf courses, guys like Garrett Gerthy, Barella, who are bombing out 600-foot drives, they're going to be much more competitive. And then you get out to the East Coast and you have the technical wood specialists who are all of a sudden going to start to be able to rise up the leaderboard. And I mean, I think, you know, what makes the greats truly great is that they're competitive on all of these courses. And that's why they're rated, you know, 1050 plus. Because if you can't handle a certain style of course, you're going to put together lower rated rounds on those kinds of courses, and you're not going to have that tip-top rating. So that's what makes those guys great. But it also doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the best at those courses, you know, week in and week out. And we're in an awesome spot in disc golf where you can have, I mean, look at the final results from this weekend. Klein and Marwede tie at 25 under and go to the playoff. But then you have 4 players tied 1 stroke back. Gibson, Freeman, Heimberg, and Jones. Different kinds of players. And then you go drop back a little further and you have Ricky and Paul. And the fact that Paul finished it comfortably inside the top 10 despite shooting only a 2 under in the final round, terrible round for him, tells you a lot. It tells you a lot.
Hey,
Just
I got a stat for you about Paul McBeth. When was the last time you think Paul McBeth had ever given up a 3-stroke lead headed into the final day? This chance comes from a tweet that Chandler Courtright asked.
3 strokes going into the final round and then doesn't win the tournament.
Yeah. Hint,
it's literally almost impossible to come up with a time when something
probably not going to come up with it.
I'm going to say like 2014. I don't know. Let me pick a random tournament.
It wasn't a major tournament, so
let's go with the Memorial.
2007 Santa Maria Fall Open. It was a C tier and McBeth's 5th time in MPO.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was the last time he gave up a 3-stroke lead and lost.
That's crazy. I mean, it's 2007. Wow.
That's according to PDGA
really,
stats. So
that's an amazing statistic. At a C tier of all things. I mean, it goes to show you why this Idlewild course is so good. Because, like, if you're just a little off with your angles, your release points, you're not birdieing. It's just, you're not going to get there. And he made some kind of shocking mistakes. You know, he had some OBs that were just, very unusual mistakes for him. I mean, he went back-to-back OB on 16 and 17. At that point, he's probably trying to press a little bit because he's back by a couple of strokes, but
that 16 OB was bad.
He was still in the mix. Like I think he was 1 stroke back at that point going into 16. I mean, the shot at 16, what the hell was that?
Terrible.
But wow, that's unbelievable. Credit to those that were able to surpass him and beat him. Because I don't care, even if he's having a bad day, it's really hard to rally past him because he'll just go get 3 birdies in a row all of a sudden. And how about a little shout out, Dave Feldberg, top 10 finish.
Yeah.
What's up, my guy? Going out there, not missing a putt inside the circle in the final round and hanging in there, bogey free final round, and finishes, just 6 strokes back of the leaders. So awesome to see from the touring vet.
FPO though, also a battle, but I don't know. It just felt like it puttered out. It felt like we deserved more. We go into the final round. Paige and Paige Pierce, Paige Shue, and then was it Sarah Hokum who's tied with them all at 1 over?
That's right.
All right. All tied 1 over par, and I was like, we are gonna have. I made sure I couldn't catch the MPO live coverage. I was too busy playing disc golf myself, but I made sure to tune in for the FPO live coverage because I was more interested. Ended up being a mistake, but it was still it was a good round to watch. It just felt like we deserved more from where it started at the beginning of the round.
Well, and it stayed close a little bit early, but then you had Sarah Hokum take a couple of bogeys on 5 and 6, and Paige Shue just like totally imploded. I mean, she has 2 fantastic rounds. She's tied for the lead, and then she shoots 15 over in the final round. A 15 over. She ended up losing by 17 strokes. And I don't know, maybe that's regression to the mean a little bit. It's hard to go out there and be consistent over the course of 3 rounds when you haven't been playing that much. And, it's also the kind of thing where like one mistake kind of ends up bubbling over. She lost the putter feel, ended up shooting just 50% C1X. And so, she falls out of the picture pretty quick. By hole 9, she'd taken 3 double bogeys and had no birdies. So it's over. And, I think Missy Gannon kept it pretty interesting up at the top, but just a couple too many mistakes. And Paige Pierce, despite taking a double bogey on 12, able to pretty comfortably come through in the end and get the win.
Folks, you just about witnessed history. Charlie, you picked all 5 correctly, and the only blemish on your picks was that you had Sarah Hokum beating Missy Gannon. And Missy Gannon decided to birdie 18 to take it away from you.
That's right. She ripped it from my hands. I get the 5 points, but not, what is it?
20 point bonus.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's crazy.
It was close. It was really good.
It was very close. I had Allen in 4th. I had Scoggins in 5th. I got Page for the win. And yeah. But I mean, shout out to I shouldn't have doubted Missy Gannon the way she's been playing. Should have put her in 2nd. Should have known better. But I'll take it. I'll take getting all 5 right. That feels pretty good.
It was good picks. I think of the other thing with it, Katrina Allen shot the 1,000 rated final round, but has she been in contention since Worlds?
Not for a win.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, she's like been around the top 10 and whatnot.
Sure.
Top 5. But I don't think she's like really been in a position where you feel like she's going to win. Like, she had a great round. She shot the best round of the weekend, in fact, in the final round. 1,000 rated, 3 under par, and she still lost by 5 strokes.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you what you need to know.
So here's a question for you, Charlie. What would you say would be the equivalence between MPO and FPO in terms of like where you would expect the top players to finish, right? At what point what place is it shocking for Katrina Allen to finish? And what place is it shocking for like Ricky to finish or Paul to finish? Is it? Because I think it's lower for MPO.
Certainly. I think, if I see, let's say, Ricky finish below 15th, I'm like, wow, that's a bad weekend for Ricky. For Allen, I think that's more like 7th.
Okay.
I mean, the round number is 5th, but like, if Katrina Allen finishes in 6th place, I'm not like going, whoa, what happened?
Right. I think 7th's a good number. So let's look. So, since Worlds, I need to change it. Okay. Since Worlds, Katrina Allen has gone 5th, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 4th. So no shocking, oh my goodness, I can't believe Katrina Allen finished that low. But nothing special. Like, pretty poor, actually, for being frank.
I mean, by her standards, especially coming in with 2nd place finishes at OTB Open and Portland, and then obviously getting the win at Worlds, the ramp up. I mean, that's great stuff. And to some extent, she was playing really well, and Paige Pierce was just playing like in Super Saiyan mode, like unbeatable. And then obviously Katrina gets the biggest feather in the cap with the World Championships win, and it hasn't been the same since. For Allen to get 5th, I mean, it's a little weak. It's a little weak, given what we know that she can do. I don't know that it means all that much. I think that we're likely to see her pick it up again as we get out to the East Coast. And I think it's probably nice for a lot of players to have a little breather after this crazy stretch. We've had Des Moines, D-Glow, Preserve, Ledgestone, Idlewild, just like bang, 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 bang. So I think it's difficult mentally to come off of Worlds and like start to pick it up. I mean, it took time for Paige Pierce, right? She now has back-to-back wins, but she did not win immediately following Worlds because it's just difficult mentally to
beat Krista Tatar,
be your best. Yes. That's also difficult physically to be your best right after a tournament that requires an incredible amount of focus and intensity. So, we're going to talk in a second about who won this Midwest stretch. So we're going to get there. But before we do that, I just want to quickly talk about the European Disc Golf Championship. It was a little crazy over there at Konopiště in the Czech Republic. Very exciting to have all of the European players back together competing. And it was, big, serious battle. In MPO, Nicholas Antila beats Linus Carlson by 1 stroke. They really created some separation. Other notable names, Juna Heinonen finished in 3rd. Vaino Makala, a big name, down in 6th place. Simon Lizotte tied for 7th, 15 strokes back of the winners. And Seppo Payu, a name, of course, that a lot of people know from, touring over the United States, all the way down at tied for 18th. Marvin Tetzel, member of the 1050 Club. Where do you think he finished?
Not high enough for the 1050 Club.
That is correct. He finished in 22nd place. He had 2 sub-1,000 rated rounds. So it was nice knowing you in the 1050 Club.
I hope his tombstone eventually reads 1050 Club from date to date. Not like life date, but just 1050 Club and the dates that he was in it.
I got into the 1050 Club and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. Anyway, still a solid weekend, but you can't be too happy about 2 sub-1,000 rated round. I mean, he had a 1051 rated round as well.
Yeah, round 1, right? Yeah,
that's right.
Round 1 was 1051, and I was like, no way. Is Marvin the real deal? And then...
Yeah, I mean, he was I think he was 2 shots off the lead after round 1. So, disappointing, ultimately. But Nicholas Antila,
You did pick him.
Give me those points. But it was crazier in FBO.
Oh, man.
It was crazier in FBO. Evelina Salonen was locked and loaded. She was in cruise control
I felt
mode,
so good about my pick.
dominating through the first 3 rounds. And here's the thing, okay? End of round 3, Evelina Salonen got a sizable lead, coming into hole 18, and she 5 putts for the triple bogey 6. So she puts it inside circle 2, and then 5 putts. And this was a bad omen. This was a very bad omen. She got the putting yips, and it carried over into the next round. And despite having a pretty substantial lead going into that final round, she just completely fell off the map in round number 4 and ended up getting just 1 birdie. And on holes 3, 4, 5 goes bogey, double bogey, triple bogey with 4 missed circle 1 putts through the stretch, and ends up falling out. It becomes a 2-horse race between Henna Blomroos and Kristen Tatar, the other obvious top talents in Europe. And ultimately, it's Henna Blomroos who comes through to get the win. Evelina Salonen ended up losing to Henna Blomroos by 8 strokes, despite coming into the round with a 5-stroke lead. So a crazy swing. Henna Blomroos stays very clean through most of the round, takes just 1 bogey on 16, and got enough birdies to keep out in front of Kristen Tatar, over whom she had a 1-stroke lead heading into the final round. Ended up winning by 2 strokes. So congratulations to Henna Blomroos in a crazy event. I think Blomroos is clearly the 3rd in the pecking order behind those other 2 players, but she's the European champion.
And we talked about how dominant Kristen Tatar was, just like how good she is. And here's Kristen Tatar getting beat, and realistically should have taken 3rd.
Yeah,
she was not in a position that she was going to catch Henna or Evelina. I mean, because Henna kept that distance, and Evelina had a mile of room, and it took a truly disastrous round for her to let Kristen back in. But realistically, Kristen's 3rd. Like, the person who just came over to the U.S. and torched the FPO division should have been 3rd at Europe Championships. So,
what What are you saying?
I'm saying look out, because like I'm almost wondering, is like with COVID ramping up again, I'm just like, please let them come back. They just have to be itching to get back to the United States, because they could do it. They could go 1, 2, 3 at tournaments.
They could. There's no question. Evelina Salonen putting down the 49 strokes gained tee to green this weekend. A comical number. We looked this up before the show. The scoring spread between first and last place in FPO was 100 strokes. It was 98 strokes in MPO. So, I mean, some of the players at the back end of the tournament really just not deserving of playing at a championship event for a continent. But, you know, even if you compare to Kristen and Henna, Evelina was picking up strokes on both of them from tee to green. The problem was she was -8 strokes gained putting, which was like 14 strokes worse than Tatar. So Blomroos doing enough tee to green, doing enough with the putter to end up getting the win. And I don't think that if you asked Henna after the third round, hey, do you think you're going to win this thing? She'd say, nah, like I'd like to take second. But that's it's disc golf for you.
Yeah. You know, and I wonder, is this typical of Evelina? Is she, so I just pulled up her putting stats. 74th C1X, 4% C2. So not great. What is? Yeah,
I mean, I think you do need to be careful with the stats that we have for Evelina for this season.
That's fair.
Because how many tournaments is this taking into account?
It was actually, I was surprised because I wasn't going to count it when I first looked, but then it actually ended up being decent. Let me pull it up real fast for you.
Okay. I mean, I want to go back to 2019 because I will say Evelina's definitely had struggles with the putter.
She's got 5 tournaments. So not a ton, but I think you start to see a picture develop. But yeah, go back to 2019. What are we looking like?
I'm pulling it up. Let's take a look. You know, it doesn't have that many tournaments that were counted here either for 2019. She actually maybe played more in 2020 because she played some of those early events before COVID hit. 68% Circle 1X, 12% Circle 2 in 2019.
66 and 12 in 2020. So
just not a great
no. So 74th is actually really good for her through 5 tournaments. So through 5 tournaments, she's 74%. I think it's really interesting because it feels like you have on both sides of the pond like a mirrored situation where you've got like Kristen Tatar, who I think of like Paige Pierce, just can throw incredibly well, has a pretty good putter. I mean, Kristen struggled with the putter too, but she usually putts better than she did in the US. Like you could see her picking it up. So like I feel like a good all around player. You have Evelina, who just can throw. I mean, if you look at her parked percentages compared to Henna and Kristen, Henna 1%, Kristen 6%, Evelina 10%. So,
wow.
You've got like your Katrina Allen and Evelina, who can just throw a mile, but has struggles on the putter. And then you got Henna Blomroos, who's like your, Heather Young or your Owen Scoggins, who can't throw very far, but doesn't miss a putt. So, it's fun. It's fun to see. I can't wait for it to be back. I want it so bad.
It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to talk about who won the Midwest. This crazy stretch is done. Everybody's going to get a little breather right now. We got a Silver Series this weekend, then we have an NT, and then we get to MVP Open in 3 weeks. So a little time to kind of catch our breath as we head over to the East Coast and we get into truly into the woods. So who won the Midwest? Coming up after this. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Pound is a product-driven company committed to evolving with and elevating the sport of disc golf. As disc technology and emerging talent continue to redefine the boundaries of the sport, equipment and course design struggle to keep up. In order to develop products that will not only keep up with, but also help redefine the sport, Pound utilizes the latest in backpack design technology. From 3D modeling to technical materials, Pound uses current technology to push product development beyond the current boundaries. Learn more at PoundDiscGolf.com. Welcome back to The Upshot. Well, we've taken a look at all of the stats from these tournaments. Who's won, who's finished in the top 5, top 10, and thought a little bit about our gut feelings, and we're going to decide right now who won the Midwest stretch. So we've got Des Moines, we've got Preserve and Ledgestone, and Idlewild, and which one am I forgetting?
Deglow,
of course. So we have this nice stretch, Iowa, Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, Minnesota, and now the players head off to the East Coast. But who won this stretch of the tour? Kind of this post-Worlds stretch, if you will. Let's start an MPO. Josh, who comes to mind?
I'm looking at, we talked about how difficult it is to win these days. We've got a couple players with wins, but I'm going to take the guy who, one, has 2 wins, and 2, also has the highest worst finish. So, theirs wasn't as bad as others. That's Ricky Wysocki. So Ricky did not play Des Moines, noteworthy. So we can't consider that. But after Des Moines, he has 8th Deglow, Preserve 1st, Ledgestone 1st, and Idlewild 7th. So, he's got 2 wins.
Do you give him for skipping Des Moines? You could argue
much.
that his worst finish was, DFL at Des Moines. I know that's
sure.
really how it works, but
I see your point. I really don't penalize him because I think this stretch is brutal. This stretch is grueling, and I personally don't love the 4 tournaments back to back to back to back. I think it's too much. Eagle skipped it as well. Chris Dickerson skipped it. You had quite a few people that chose. Kyle Klein skipped it. So you got a bunch of people who chose to skip it. And given that the field was a bit lighter, it almost felt a little bit like a Silver Series in terms of the competition. So I have no reason to believe that Ricky's going to finish outside of top 10, top 15. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being a little bit too generous.
I was just curious. Continue.
Yeah. So
Ricky.
So I don't punish.
Great stretch of golf.
Yeah, and he did. He had a great stretch. But the big thing is, if you look at your other top names, Eagle McMahon, 12th at Idlewild, Paul McBeth, 18th at Ledgestone, Calvin Heimberg, 13th at Deglow, 12th at Preserve, Chris Dickerson, 13th at Deglow, 12th at Idlewild, Kevin Jones had a 12th at Ledgestone, Kyle Klein had a 15th at the Preserve. So, all of our other players that I think come to mind, and we think of people who played well in the Midwest, all have outside a top 10 finish. And Ricky's the only one that doesn't. So I think lacking the blemish of outside top 10 finish and with 2 wins, Ricky makes the case for me.
I am very excited to see where things end up in the Player of the Year race, because we had a stretch earlier in the year, Texas, middle of the country, right? If you separate the country into thirds, Ricky has really played well in the middle of the country. And I think he's probably the front runner right now for Player of the Year. It was looking like, he felt inevitable at one point for winning the World Championships. Obviously, that did not happen. I think it's probably to his benefit that it was James Conrad that won Worlds. So, obviously, we need to see what happens at USDGC. We need to see what happens at the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship. But Ricky's in a great spot. He's not my pick for who won the Midwest. Is he the player who had the best sort of overall performance with multiple wins and no double-digit finishes? Yes, no question about it. But my pick for who won the Midwest is Kyle Klein, because Kyle Klein gets his first Elite Series win. And it's not that he just like popped up one day and had a great tournament. He played really well through this entire stretch of time. I mean, he almost won D-Glow. He was right there. And then, maybe has a little bit of like a mental falter there, and then shows up and really perseveres and keeps himself in the mix, and then eventually wins in the playoff at this weekend. And I think it's not always about who had the best average finish, right? You think about what it means for their career. No one's going to remember this stretch of Ricky Wysocki's career. Oh, he won back-to-back tournaments in the Midwest on the Disc Golf Pro Tour in the middle of the summer in 2021. No, that is not going to be part of the legacy of Ricky Wysocki, besides to add to his win totals. This stretch will be remembered for Kyle Klein because, A, it's his first ever Elite Series win, but I think it's also the time where he clearly established himself as not just like the next player to be good or like, oh, promising young talent, amateur champion type guy. No, Kyle Klein is now like very squarely inside the top 10 players in the world. I don't care what the ratings say, whatever. He is in that group, and he will remain in that group. Sure, there may be some ups and downs, tour life, all that, but the talent is unbelievable. And by the way, can I just say this? How is it? Does Discmania have like some crazy talent ID like scout people on their team? Because I'm telling you, they keep on these people pop up, and they keep having the players who become the next big thing. And this is like a total coup for this company that didn't even like have the ability to give their players discs 6 months ago. Okay, I don't know how they're doing that, but like they have done the best job of any of these companies at IDing talent early and giving sponsorships early and then maintaining that. So obviously they did it with Eagle. They've done it with Kyle Klein. I think there's a very good chance that Ella Hansen is going to fit into this mold and become that kind of player who goes out and gets their first Elite Series win. It's a little crazy, and it shows me that, the folks at Discmania understand that there's huge value in locking up a player early before they have become, before you have to pay them a huge contract, right? It's like drafting somebody out of college in baseball and not paying the 30-year-old, the $40 million a year contract.
The one thing I do want to argue with the Ricky, and you won't remember the stretch. You just asked if you just said that you think Ricky is now the front runner and player of the year, which this stretch will be important in defining that if he gets it.
Yeah,
and that's an important accolade. So,
but in 5 years, are we going to talk about it?
No, but we'll talk about it next year if it happens. I think you're right. I think Kyle Klein, in terms of impact to career, though, it's without a doubt Kyle Klein. My question for you is, I was kind of looking at it. I think player of the year feels a little bit like a 2-horse race right now. And that's not to say another horse couldn't get back in, but Eagle and Ricky both have 4 Elite Series wins. And after that, like, Paul has 2, I think. Yeah, Paul's got 2, and Calvin Heimberg doesn't have any. I don't know who else
is the world's most snake bit player of all time, and the guy's playing crazy good golf and can't get a win.
Yeah,
I mean, he was incredibly exciting to watch this weekend, but just honestly, just feels like he's getting a little unlucky. I have to say it. Like, the variance has been negative for him, right? Tree kicks that are going well for other people are not going well for him, and that's part of the game.
So I think it's right now Eagle or Ricky, like, and USDGC can change things.
But I agree. I mean, they're 1-2 in the Pro Tour standings, and I think that if you want to knock Eagle, it's like his NT standings aren't very good right now, but I think we need to wait until the end of the season to kind of see.
Well, it's because he skipped Masters Cup.
Yeah, he skipped a tournament, and I don't know. I feel like Ricky has had the more sustained high level of play over the course of the season.
Well, Ricky's also got 2 Silver Series wins.
Which I don't really put a lot of stock in that. I mean, Ricky finished 1 spot higher than Eagle at Worlds. It's hard. I agree. Mm-hmm. I mean, certainly at this moment in time, it's one of those two.
Yeah.
Somebody would have to really catch fire and win like 3 or 4 down the stretch here.
I think. Do you think 2 Elite Series and USDGC is enough to do it?
Probably not.
If Eagle and Ricky don't win again.
I mean, like, Macbeth's Des Moines Challenge win is not the same level of quality as other Elite Series wins. Sorry. So if Macbeth wins USDGC, I still don't think that's enough. I mean, if he doesn't win other tournaments too, I think Macbeth would need to win USDGC and another event.
Okay.
And then that might be enough. But it's certain. I don't think USDGC would be enough. Des Moines Challenge that's not a high quality win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you're right. I think Calvin would need. I think right now you've got to have 4 wins, including USDGC, probably to catch them.
Yep.
Which means Macbeth's got to win 2, Calvin's got to win 3.
It's not out of the question.
No, it's not, but it's getting tough.
MVP, we know Macbeth can play that course very effectively.
Mm-hmm. Also great at GMC,
and has won USDGC. So it's not crazy to think like somebody could get hot and go, first at MVP, second at GMC, first at USDGC, and top 4 at Pro Tour Championship, and maybe that would be enough. Maybe.
I think if Eagle or Ricky lock out either MVP Open or GMC or Music City Open,
done deal.
It's over. It's over. Deal. It's just between those two at that point.
I agree 100%. Any other players come to mind for Midwest stretch champ?
Not champ, but I mean, we talked. Hats off again to Andrew Marwede. I probably wouldn't say champ. He had a 50th finish at the Preserve, but second and fourth at Ledgestone. Like I said, I think this is going to really bump him up in kind of his publicity and his name recognition, which is always something that's valuable. Drew Gibson also had what felt like a turning point in his season.
Really playing well last couple of weeks. No doubt about it. So
those are the 2 names that I feel are important to know.
Let's bounce ourselves over into FPO. And there's a few options here to choose from. I'm going to keep it on trend here. I'm going to pick Missy Gannon. It's similar to my Kyle Klein pick. I mean, first Elite Series win at the Des Moines Challenge, and then backs it up with really, really strong play. Second place finishes at Ledgestone and Idlewild. I think that, it's not the technical best stretch, which we can talk about the other players who've had multiple wins in that stretch as maybe the ones that should deserve this Midwest champ title. But I think Missy Gannon is the player I'm going to remember the most from this stretch, similarly to Kyle Klein. So I'm going with Missy.
I am going to pick Kristen Tatar. She had Silver Series win, first Clash of the Canyons, which isn't a huge deal, but then went third at Des Moines, first Deglo, first Preserve. And granted, she wasn't there for Ledgestone or Idlewild, both of which Paige Pierce won. Like we are very much forgetting. If you look at just sheer numbers, Paige Pierce probably wins.
Yes,
but I think that is a hard comparison when Kristen Tatar was not unable by no choice of her own to stay for those events. And I think that the fact that she just played so dominant that stretch. And at the end of the day, I mean, she reminded us why we are so eager to get the European disc golf back. Because I think at the beginning of COVID, we were especially adamant in talking about it. We're like, wait, you got to have, European women. And it felt like eventually we just slowed down a little bit in talking about how important and how necessary it was. And we continued to mention it, but I think this really refreshed it to the point that we're like, oh yeah, there's not the European women here. Like when you start looking at majors, when you look at the Throw Pink Championship coming up, it's going to be a question of, well, what if? Because Kristen Tatar reminded us that we're not allowed to forget about the European women.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. I mean, Paige Pierce not getting enough respect here. She went third, second, first through the stretch. Average finish-wise, Tatar, I guess, still probably has the edge, but didn't play two of the events. Average finish-wise, Paige Pierce clearly ending up playing the best through that time. But then again, finished second to Tatar both of those times. I mean, did not beat Tatar in the stretch. They tied at DMC, and then she lost heads up at Deglow and Preserve. So Tatar's a great pick. I'm almost tempted to switch away from Gannon, but I'm going to stick with it because I think it's just a fun story for Missy Gannon to really pick up her performance. I hope that she continues to play better and finds a kind of a new sustained level of performance. So there you go in FPO. Lots of other players getting lots of top 10 finishes, but that's not enough. So, Katrina Allen we talked about already, Haley King, 4th, 3rd, 5th, 7th, solid, but honestly disappointing at times. Had the great opportunity at Ledgestone to really seize a win and kind of mentally faltered. So exciting stuff. And it was really, I'm surprised, I have to say, as kind of a final note here, on how good the golf was through this stretch, despite the fact that it was so much back-to-back. Like, Idlewild may have been the best of the bunch, and it came at the very end of this grueling sequence. So shout out to the players for managing their, health and rest effectively. Hopefully nobody gets hurt now after all of this workload. I mean, we did see some players have to step away. I think was it Gannon Burr who had to?
Maybe it was Gavin Rathbun though.
Gavin Rathbun, thank you.
Withdrawn, yeah, which is too bad because I wonder we should probably talk Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. That's locked in now for the Match Play Championship. That's right. We've got Match Play coming up, and we should be able to say with certainty who's going to be playing, assuming that they take their bids. Right. So
who are our last in?
All right. So you have everyone at the top who we expected. I'm gonna start at 10th for MPO. You have Ezra Aderhold in 10th, Drew Gibson 11th. Joel Freeman in 12th. His push to Idlewild bumps him up to 12th. So Joel Freeman in for the Match Play Championship. Gavin Rathbun at 13th. Despite not playing Idlewild, he's able to stay in it. Garrett Gerthy at 14. Chris Dickerson at 15. Are you looking at it right now, Charlie? Or can I have you guess? Too bad.
You're going to make me
Chris
guess.
Clemens, 16th.
Sneaky.
Sneaks into the Match Play Championship. So good for him. I think some notable misses. Emerson Keith, 17th. Colton Montgomery, 18th. Gannon Burr, 19th. Jeremy Coling, 20th. And Paul Ulibarri at 21st. So
there you go. And we know a couple spots are going to open up. And we know Macbeth's not playing. I wouldn't be surprised if another player declined a spot. So, we may end up getting a couple of those people in. Over in FPO, Juliana Corver, no problem, 10th place. Kat Murch, 11th. Madison Walker, Owen Scoggins, Lisa Fakis, Holly Finley, and in 16th place, Valerie Mondujano. That means Heather Young on the outside looking in and just, doesn't play quite enough events.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up getting a spot at the tournament. Alexis Mondujano in 18th. Kristen Tatar, incredibly, in 19th. not that she would have come and played, but it's insane that she's finished in the top 10 despite playing 4 events on the Pro Tour or something like that.
Yep, 4.
Wow.
2 names that I think are significant are actually in the middle of the pack. Deanne Carey in 8th place, which, good for Deanne. And then Rebecca Cox in 9th. So I think we see them. They have a lot of kind of some up downs because their lowest got dropped. I think they benefited really well from that. So good for them.
Also just goes to show you what a separator there is between kind of the top 7 right now and everybody else. Pierce, Allen, Gannon, Hokum, Jessica Weiss, Kona Panis, Haley King, and then Deanne Carey. And all respect to Deanne Carey. I mean, she's been all inside the top 10 for most of the last 2 months. And it kind of fell off the pace a little bit at Ledgestone and Idlewild, but I mean, it's just very clearly a top group. I mean, it's not a coincidence, for example, that I picked 5 out of 5 in the top 5 this week. I mean, it's just that there are players who have clearly separated themselves, and this group will expand once the European players are back. But it's definitely a little more top heavy.
Mm-hmm. Still on the matter of FPO, Charlie, you had a good week for the over-unders. Our over-under for last week, 995 rated hot round for the FPO. There were 2 of them. One was...
Over.
You took the over.
Up for the over.
Got it. I thought that was a hold up. Charlie took the over, and then you had Sarah Hokum shooting a 997, I believe it was, or was it 999? We looked. I'd have to go back.
But it was there were 2 rounds over 995. Yep.
And the other one was Katrina. So, it was Paige Pierce, round 1, 999, and then round 3, Katrina Allen at 1,000. So 2 of them beat the 995 mark. And then because I decided to double down because I refused to back out and cut my losses, I also said that there would be less than 4 rounds that scored under par, and I think there were 7. So
I got the dub this week.
You got the dub.
I take the 6-4 lead in the over-under contest.
Yeah, I got some work to do.
Well, we will get to our over-unders for this coming weekend on Thursday's show. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please join us as a subscriber. If you go to discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe, you get access to our bonus Upshot segments every week, subscriber-only newsletter, subscriber-only articles, and a whole bunch more, including hanging out in the Discord. There's been some great discussion this week in the Discord about how to balance live coverage between MPO and FPO, and some very thoughtful discussion between some people who are on the inside of the DGN. So join us. It's less than $4 a month. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on The Upshot.